Welcome everyone to the WordPress Santa Clarita Meetup. Again, I apologize for moving this meetup. And again, like I mentioned in the lead up, this is a topic that's pretty important, but there were some things going on here in Southern California that I'm sure a lot of folks that are on the line knew about. And specifically, one of the fires was just one exit north of me. So we had to evacuate. And that was like the week leading up to the meetup. So it's been kind of crazy. But I really wanted to do this topic and I hope I do it justice, but let's get the meeting started. Welcome again. We've been doing this meetup. It's a WordPress meetup for those that are new to WordPress. Welcome. The meetups that I do and a lot of the folks that are on the line that have been talking, they also do meetups and there's a million different flavors. So depending on how you want to learn, some of folks that are on the line, they do help desk style where you come in with your questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? Others have speakers in. There's a whole bunch of different flavors. And my flavor is more, I like to do a combination, but also I love to onboard new users in WordPress. So we're like beginner to intermediate level. But this topic is special to me because, again, I started my career on the design side. I worked, and anyway, I'll get into it in my demo or in my slides and tell you more. But we do WordPress here in Santa Clarita. For those that aren't familiar, it's in Southern California. It's about 35 minutes north of Los Angeles. It's right before you go over the Grapevine into the valleys here and head north. We are sponsored by Green Geeks. We started to do more in-person things, and they've made that possible. We had a great holiday gathering, and we're going to do a couple of in-person things coming up in a lead up to hopefully WordCamp Santa Clarita later this fall. With WordPress meetups and my meetup specifically, the point of these are to share and learn with each other. And it's really not to be jerks about it and just try to learn and teach each other things. So these are sort of the rules we go by. If you're new to WordPress or if you've been using it for a while, in the admin, when you're logged in, it tells you about news and events. You can actually select a location depending on where you are. So you can see meetups, not just in the location where you are or all across the country or all across the world. It also has news and information on what's going on in the WordPress community right now. The WordPress drama in the listing. There's a current article about two of the folks that are trying to fork WordPress and sort of the conversation that's going back and forth there. So if you want to keep up with that kind of stuff, which I kind of don't, you can find it in your dashboard as well. You can follow us. We also have a WordPress site where a lot of this information that's going on in the meetups, we post the video recaps there. We mention the upcoming meetups, like a little bit of history about the group. So you can subscribe there and stay up to date with us as well. These are also other places where you can find us on the internet. We have a YouTube channel where we put the videos as well. We're on social media and other places as well. So please subscribe and follow.
If you're showing links, they're not being shown to us.
Well, you should see the slide. Yeah,
I saw the slide.
Right now you should see things as the 5 good faith rules. You see.
Slides are working.
Okay, it's not appearing for me for some reason. I don't.
Uh-oh.
Do you have multiple monitors?
Oh.
Multiple displays?
Yeah, carry on.
Okay.
Yeah, because the whole thing is going to be slides. You have to visually see the Figma stuff. So
Yeah, are you on the phone? Maybe that. I mean, you may have to.
Zoom hides the speaker behind the gallery view, so you might have to look behind the gallery view.
oh.
And I was gonna say that's the awesome thing. Like, see those kind of questions. There's so much incredible wisdom and knowledge on this call. That's pretty awesome. So
Wisdom. They call it wisdom.
got it. All right. And I'll also let me share inside of the chat. Also, let me put in the link to the slides also so you can follow along. Let me jump out for a second. let me jump back in. All right. Tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Joe Simpson. I'm a community leader here in WordPress Santa Clarita. But what you may not know is that the first part of my career that I talked about briefly before, I was on the print side, and I worked for Fortune 500 companies as a designer out of school. I worked for Unisys Corporation, for Chrysler Corporation, two Fortune 500 companies in their corporate identity departments as part of the brand team. And the amazing thing, I've also worked at Metro Los Angeles for the past 30 plus years. And the amazing thing about all of those three large entities is that they all went through a brand update or a change of logo when I joined the company. And the amazing thing was that I worked with a couple of really worldwide, internationally known design companies on implementing their brand and creating the brand standards. So I had a lot of experience in doing that, and it's extended into my work at Metro. But about a third of the way through that 30 plus year career that I talked about, I shifted over to doing web stuff, and I've been doing that ever since. About 8 years ago, I had a life event where I switched over, and I took a leave of absence. And during that 90 days, I said, hey, let me get back into things, doing things that I really love or really enjoy, and things that really make me happy. And WordPress was one of those things because there's so many kind and welcoming people in this community. And I just started doing what I currently do today. I've been to 1 million WordCamps. I spoke at over 20 plus events. I've organized WordCamps, and I've just been going full throttle. And as a matter of fact, in January, I retired from Metro to do this full time and start up my agency. So what we're doing today is part of my journey, and that's what brings me for you today. And I'm sort of investigating tools to use as part of my agency. And this was one topic that's always been on the back burner since I've shifted over from graphics, but I wanted to find out more about Figma and whether that could plug into my current system. So as we put in the chat, put a little bit about yourself. I'd love also to know, and I'm going to fire up a poll really quickly. I want to know a little bit more about your experience level, so I could sort of talk a little bit more to that. So I'm launching 2 questions in the poll. The first one is, do you use WordPress at an intermediate or advanced level or beginning level? I didn't put a beginner because most people, if you're here, you probably know something about WordPress. Because as we were talking, there were over 75 or 77 people that RSVP'd. So I'm assuming that level of interest is coming from the design side. So I wanted to make sure I tailored what I'm going to talk about to what your skill level is. And if you also want to put a little bit more information in the chat as to what your experience level is, that would be great. And then the second question again is, if you don't know anything about WordPress, there's an age-old term called the 5-minute install. And I'm going to briefly talk about that. But if you've never heard of it before, I'm going to briefly go through it. But it's an important part of you getting your site up and running in WordPress. So I'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll finish the chat here, the polls. And so as for the next maybe minute or so, if anybody that's not familiar with WordPress wants to unmute and give me a little bit of your history, that would be great.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I am Mudra and I'm very new to WordPress. I'm from a design background and I have a brand where we design and manufacture textiles. So I'm like extremely new for this, and I am looking forward for this to build my own website. Yeah.
Away right
So
now.
yeah,
Good. Thanks, Mudra. All right.
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to end the quiz. Anyone else want to jump in before we get started?
If I can just say that I'm so new that naive is the word I use to describe myself. And even to the whole idea of even using the internet in any respect. I've got some creative ideas. I'm teetering on retiring as a nurse, but am thinking about how I can use my store of knowledge to be helpful to others in other ways than specifically going to a facility to serve as a nurse. And one of those ideas could involve using a web-based site. But I'm actually curious about all kinds of different ways. I'm not a fan of social media. I think it would just kill me. It would suck me in 100%. But if that's what I need to do, then maybe I'll have to learn that too. But I think WordPress is mostly web design, website design, and that I think I could handle. And I'm also very interested in design, period, just arts. So
Oh, great.
that's me.
Yeah, and again, thanks for that. WordPress started as a blogging platform way back in the day. So people used WordPress, back in the days when Blogger and there were people just wanted to express themselves on the internet. But it sort of evolved into something that's more, businesses use it. One of the things it's the selling point for WordPress is that it powers over 40% of the internet. But the thing that I think is more important or is valuable to the audience is that you have control over what you want your site to be. There are services out there like Squarespace, Wix, and things like that, where you pay, but that information is somewhere else. You don't really have control over it. But WordPress is about giving you the power to do it yourself. It's sort of like if you left to work on your cars.
Oh, did you? Can I just follow up on, as you mentioned, blogging? It started with blogging because that is very. I don't know if that's passé by now,
No,
blogging, but for me, that's a very intriguing part of creating a space that's accessible, a digital space.
it's not
I would.
passé.
Pardon?
It's not passé at
Okay,
all.
good.
100% no.
Awesome.
It's
Okay.
sort of like it's sort of like a term that means something else, but it's work. I mean, communicating your ideas on the internet could be considered blogging. It's just a term that they used way back in the day. So it's not passive. Everyone that's putting up a site is sort of communicating something. So it's still in the tradition of the same thing. So what you see on the screen here is the back end of one of my hosts. When you get started in WordPress, one of the first decisions you're going to have to make is where you're going to host your website. And there are a number of hosts that are out there. We're not going to really get into the specifics of that in this meetup, but I did want to talk about the famous 5-minute install. Way back when it started, one of their selling points was that in 5 minutes, you can have a site up and running in WordPress. And a lot of the hosts now take on that responsibility and they walk you through the setup of your site without having any technical knowledge, with basically clicking a button. So what you see here is a back end of SiteGround, and up in the upper right hand corner, there's a new site button, and you just press that and it just takes you through. It sort of takes you through step by step. Like it gives you 3 options. And so it's basically selecting choices as you go through. If you already have a domain, it'll take you in a certain direction to get your site set up. If you have a new domain, or a temporary domain, and the temporary domains, if you saw on the last page, was sort of something when I'm working on a site, or if I have like for instance, I'm doing a demo today, you can spin up a site and sort of have a sandbox to play in. So it's very intuitive, very simple, and you basically go through and answer certain questions. You can migrate your site over, and then in a few clicks, it'll run through its backend stuff, and then you'll have a site and within it's a couple minutes most of the time. This is the backend for Green Geeks, which is another host. One thing that I would recommend if you are getting started, work with a WordPress-friendly host. There are a million web hosts out there. Way back in the day, I was on like a host in Britain that didn't really do WordPress, and it was very cheap, but I didn't have any assistance. The great thing about a lot of these hosts is that you can get help if you need it. There are also people in the community that have their own hosting companies. So as you get in the community and find people, you can really drill down and find something really custom or specific to what you want to do. If you feel like you need more power, you can work with someone individually, or if you feel like you need assistance, you can go with one of the hosts. And again, it has a button that you click and it starts up a wizard that'll walk you through again and gives you choices, and you just click, 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 and then within 2 or 3 minutes, you have your site up and running. All right, so the topic today is designing your first WordPress site with Figma. The reason I thought to do this is to figure out, again, what my process is going to be. At Metro, the last 5 or 6 years, as user experience and UX folks have come on the scene as an occupation, I've had to interface with them more in my agency. Way back in the day, our marketing folks would come over with a brief and they would give us, little sketches, and we would have to translate that into a site. But now, with project management teams being all over the world and remote workers being parts of your team, it's important to have a digital tool. And Figma has sort of risen to prominence in that it's a browser-based tool that has also, you can download a desktop app, but it allows you to collaborate and do a lot of things over the internet. And I was going to bust out all of these stats. I think it's in $1 billion company. I think it has thousands and thousands of users that are mainly in the design area. So it's been a tool that's been more prominent. Like I started in Zeppelin. I've used InDesign, InVision, Adobe XD, but Figma has sort of taken hold. It's sort of like how WordPress has sort of taken over in terms of websites. But the current process, what I've used the last 4 years at Metro, it's been a manual process, and we'll take a look inside of Figma in a moment, but it's basically moving things across or copying, pasting, exporting from the dev part of Figma. But is there a way to automate this? And so the last couple of weeks, I've been investigating it, and the results of what I've investigated is what I'm going to show you today. I wanted to see what kind of options there were in Figma that would allow some sort of automated process to migrate a site over into WordPress. In WordPress, what are the options? Is there an option for just the Gutenberg builder? Is there an option for bricks or Elementor or others? So I wanted to figure out what there were, and I'm going to share that with you today. And then these are a couple of things that I tested. There's a company called UiChemy or UiChemy. I'm not sure how they pronounce it. And they have a plugin available in WordPress that works with these 3 tools. And there's also on the Figma side, there's a couple of tools that will allow you to export something over into WordPress. Here are a couple of screens from inside Figma as well. This is for the UiChemy tool. And some folks that are just getting started as well. If you don't have a design background or if you're learning it, there are a lot of tools on both sides that will give you preset templates or preset UI kits that you could start with. And again, I wanted to find out if there's a way to get a design from the design stage over into WordPress automatically and not manually. When I looked at UiChemy, one of their selling points was they talked about the hours that it saved. Again, I'll show you a couple of UX layouts that I had to deal with at Metro that I had to manually move across. And I was like, wow, 43 to 78 hours. If you're a web designer, it saves you up to 31 hours. So this was a big selling point. But as a person that's come over from the design side, on Apple, where it's a great user interface and things make sense, I really want my process to be as simple as possible, as intuitive as possible. I don't want to have a really heavy learning curve. When you're in WordPress, there's a little bit of a learning curve to get up to speed and get your process down. So I don't want to have to continually learn another tool on top of WordPress, on top of Figma. So these are some of the considerations that I had. Again, it brags about all these areas where it saves you time. Okay, so let's jump out and take a look. Are there any questions before we get to the next stage?
Yeah, Joe.
Sure.
I don't know about Figma. What exactly is it? Is it like like a plugin?
Well, it's a browser-based application, and
Mm-hmm.
similar to WordPress, it has a whole community, and that community builds tools that extend the features of Figma.
Want me
It's
to
sort
help
of,
you with that, Joe?
well,
Because I use it a lot. Can I answer her question?
oh, sure. I was just going to
Just
say,
quickly. Okay,
yeah, I
he's
was just
gonna
going to
actually
say,
show us.
it allows you to create designs. It's sort of
Yeah, and he's gonna
like a
actually show
sketchboard.
us.
It's so, Alicia, if you want to jump in, and what you
Well,
see,
yeah,
I'll
what I
go
want to
ahead and
jump
say.
in is she will relate to this when you used to make your design mockups in Photoshop. So what Figma does is it allows you to make design mockups, but the sensibility of flexible layout or responsive layouts. And so it's geared toward people who are doing design on an online or site or device type of media. So, and it also has an infinite canvas, meaning that you scroll all the way across and you have all this space. So Joe's going to show us. So I'm pretty sure once we see it in action, it all dissolves all.
But I love the question, because I think a lot of us on this side, and I always try to fight against the curse of knowledge, whereas like we expect people to know what
Oh,
we know. So if I'm talking ahead, I love that kind of question. Mudra.
yeah.
Over my shoulder is my old drawing table that I don't use anymore. So imagine Figma is sort of like having this drawing table on your desktop, and you can lay out your designs. And what you see here on the screen is a project that I did at Metro. It's for, we had a new regime come in, and they wanted to do new fair information on the internet. And they, in the back and forth and ideation process, they wanted to see as many options as possible. And what you see here is sort of the canvas that Alicia talked about. And if you just zoom out, you can see it goes on forever, but it allows you to get a lot of different ideas in. You can also have on the left pane here, there are a number of different, you can do it like this designer did a number of different versions, and they did the pages by date. So they just kept iterating and created a new page based on the comments, and it kept going. So here in the left-hand panel, you can see the number of iterations that these designs went through and over time. And then
I have a
you
question,
also,
Joe.
sure, go ahead, Eagle.
I'm seeing a lot of black space on the left and right of your browser, which makes your browser windows very small on my screen. So I just wondered if anybody else is.
Well, I can
See
try.
the sidebars.
Yeah, it looks small on mine too.
Okay, well,
Are
let
you
me
talking about the sidebars for Figma?
No,
Yeah,
no, I'm talking
I
about the
think
browser itself is
in addition to the.
Oh, I don't see that.
Yeah, well,
I
let
see
me.
his whole screen, but I see a lot of black space on each side of the browser.
Okay, well, let
Oh.
me do this, Eagle. Let me switch it over to my second monitor, and hopefully it's a different aspect ratio. Let me hold on a second, folks.
That's weird. How could he see it and I can't see it?
I could see
Yeah,
it too.
even I
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say, I
can
think
see it.
everyone's got different.
No, someone else couldn't see it either.
Yeah.
The ladies can't see it.
We just made the screen smaller.
Hold on.
It was a square format. It was 1-to-1 with a lot of black on either side.
Wow, that's so weird.
Well, I
What
think
form? What
what I
aspect
was gonna
ratio?
say, what I think it is too, and this is interesting, and it's part of this whole journey I'm talking about, is this monitor that you're talking about, Eagle, is probably 25 years old, and it's a
Okay.
Wacom. It's the original Wacom, so it's a different aspect
Yeah.
ratio. So if that's the problem, then one of the
Someone
things that I
also
was
put
going to
into
do
the
is
someone
get
put in
new
the chat, it
technology.
might be the personal Zoom of the person viewing.
Yeah, we'll
I
see.
think.
Yeah. So let me see if it's any different, Eagle, when I switch monitors here. All right. So this is a
Oh,
different.
okay.
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, good. So I'll make a note to never do it on that monitor again.
Because it secretly only does it to certain people. Like,
All right. So yeah. So what you see here again, I'll quickly go back through it and let me get rid of this thing here. All right. All right. So yeah. So it has a basic interface where you have your screen has a panel on the left which shows you all the different iterations, and again, you can see all these different iterations of what they were thinking about in terms of imagery, in terms of look and feel. Even, part of our design group, we have folks that just love writing things that make you feel good. So that's at play. So people have the ability to see it in a format that looks very close to being finished. But the problem always is, and this is no insult to designers in general, because I was one. A lot of times the designs that happen, in the print world or that you lay out here need to work on a website and work on a mobile device. And a lot of the things that are floating around are very difficult to position. Absolutely. And pixel perfect design is always a challenge. So that was another reason why I wanted to investigate this tool to see if I could keep a lot of that pixel perfectness, so to speak, when I take it over into the tools that we use. And unfortunately, when you're doing it manually, it's very tedious. So imagine going through the final layout here, these final layouts, and having to work through the desktop version, the mobile version, and then figure out what the tablet version is going to be. So it's quite a hassle. All right. So, yeah. So what you see here again is our fair page. They have a number of different programs that they wanted to address on this page. It was sort of like a landing page for each type of discount that they do with the community. So there was going to be a page for students, and then there's going to be a page for people that need assistance because they have low income. There's also a seniors page, so people over a certain age. So they worked out how each of these pages would work, the system, the different modules that will work, and then they came to the web team. And the thing that's unfortunate, or the thing that I think is lacking in this process as well, is that in these processes, a lot of times the design is set before it even comes over to the web group, or before there's any interaction with the developers or designers. There's really not a lot of input on, hey, you should think about doing it this way or that way. So really it's like sort of handing it off to you, and you have to figure out how to get it done. So that can kind of slow down the process as well. Because again, in a large agency like I work in, we have a marketing team that does something. Then we have a graphics team that does some of the visuals. And then we also have our web team, and then we have our IT group. So there's like 4 different groups. And then there's also throughout our agency, different client groups. So our operations team has a certain set of needs. Our fair people have a certain set. So there's all these things floating around, and it ends up here in Figma, and then it has to go over to the web. So that's one downside for me here, is that without a lot of interaction or input, especially in terms of how things are going to, it comes to us at this point, and then we have to figure out if things are accessible, or if things are going to function, if there's a widget, or we're going to have to build something custom. So a lot of those decisions can be left out of this process if you're not involved. So if you're learning at this point, make sure that if you're working with a designer or developer, have them involved at this process, even as far back as wireframes. And in Figma, you also see a lot of wireframes in some of these toolkits. So it's a part of this tool as well. So again, when you figure out what your process is going to be, it's important to figure out what tools work for all of the teams. All right. So let's go in and I'll show you, I'll open up another page here. And this is the page we're going to use as a sample here. Are there any other questions as we go here?
Joe, aren't these features available on WordPress?
Yes.
Like, you know, the freedom to design any kind of layout which we want or any kind of frames. Aren't they available in the WordPress itself?
Yes, and I think I'm gonna do a more hands-on part 2 to this because for me, some of the tools that I use, it has the ability to create these design systems, but then there's some downsides to that too. One thing that you'll have to decide, and hopefully being exposed to a meetup like this, is that you need to keep in mind how the users are going to experience your web page, how people that have disabilities are going to experience your web page. So a lot of that goes into your ability to do it, but there are a number of different tools in the WordPress community. So Mudra, it sounds like you're not really familiar with it.
Yeah.
In WordPress, there are a number of different ways to build your pages. And this community has built a number of different types of tools. WordPress itself has built a tool called Gutenberg, which has a full site editor, which allows you to build a page a certain way. There's also things that are considered page builders like Divi, Elementor, Beaver Builder, Oxygen. There's a whole bunch of those. There's new players on the scene. There's also tools like Brick. I don't know if Brick considers itself a page builder, but there's also tools like Genesis. There's a million different ways to get your pages going. And like Genesis, GeneratePress, for example, is more of a developer-oriented tool. So if you like to write code and things like that, that's a more advanced way to build page builders. I mean, build your pages, but there's a number of different flavors based on your skill level. So it just depends on, like as a new person, I would suggest going with something really simple that will create like a beginning level tool, allows you to pick a theme that has a lot of that stuff figured out for you. And then you could just focus on writing the content. There's also tools where if you want to have more design input, like page builders are good for that because they give you a lot of drag and drop, but then there's some issues there. So as you go up the experience chain and your needs may change, there are a different number of tools that can help you with that.
Just to be fair about the GeneratePress, it actually goes from it goes from like very limited to what you were saying, like design, it goes to no code to code. That's why I like it, because it stretches the entire spectrum. So you can literally take a theme and import it and it's already styled out for you and you just change colors and stuff. So it's not necessarily for the high-end developers. It covers a wider spectrum. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, that's fine. And as you can see, there are different opinions that are always welcome, but again, it just depends on what your comfort level is and how you learn. And the great thing about a community like this, or like for instance, Alicia has a meetup, or Eagle has a meetup, Ron has a meetup, they all have different ways that they go about teaching WordPress. So depending on what you want to know, there's somebody here to help you with that. So again, as someone that's new, I would say, please join us. But then there's also folks that will be
Join all the meetups. You'll see the same people. We're like a gang of geeks.
Yeah. So there's a million different videos, a million different learning materials, a million different ways to get online teaching materials. But the way that I love to learn is that I love to see someone demonstrate it and then be able to ask questions back and forth. So again, this is the right community for that. So as you learn, have you ever set up a site? Do you have a domain? Have you ever done it that way, or do you need to go from square one, Mudra?
Hey, can I preempt that question? Sadly, I have to jump off way before I want to. But is the website to stay in touch with Joe and everybody else that's involved is the WP Santa Clarita website? Okay.
And you can also you found us on Meetup. You can just put a comment in there or directly message me and come back and join us. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately, Meetup doesn't work for me
okay.
in terms of communication. So, can I reach to you, Joe, and or the group
Oh,
via
sure.
the
Yeah.
WP Santa Clarita?
Yep. You can also on that channel, I mean, on that page, you can subscribe, and then every time there's an update or something, it'll shoot it over to your email. So definitely
Okay,
subscribe
just
to.
did that. Thanks very
Okay.
much. And that means that this presentation will be accessible through that website.
Yep. We'll
Thank you
also
so much.
we're going to put that video up. All right. Thanks for stopping by, Eric.
Are
You
you actually
appreciate
are you recording it, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, good, good, good.
really appreciate you all.
Okay.
This is exciting.
Thanks. All right.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I
I'm
know
looking
that.
for the red dot.
You know what the when
Called
we.
red dot anxiety. You know what? We all have
Oh,
it,
I
right?
know.
Thought you were
No,
recording something and you're like,
I,
where's the red dot?
it happened when we had a WooCommerce presentation by Sean, and I hit the record button before everybody was here to test something, and then I stopped, and then I came back later and fired up the meeting, and I didn't have it recorded. So, so I've hit the automatic record button in the settings. So, all right. So back to where we were. Sorry to get sidetracked, but yeah, Mudra, I would say follow us because again, this journey I'm on, it's sort of like starting over. So I'm going to actually build my agency site in a
Yeah.
hands-on session. So I would definitely invite you back to join up and follow during that process because
Yeah.
again, I'm sort of figuring out what tools I want to use. But again, as a beginner, it'll be good for you to see somebody go from
Mhm.
zero to 100.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So also I'll share in the notes some of the plugins that I'm talking about on the Figma side. Again, if you don't have design experience, there are a lot of people that are building UI toolkits with different components that are already pre-designed that you can bring over. This is part of the UiChemy team, folks, and he's built all of these design systems in Figma, and these are free. Where it shows, and this again goes back to my brand days, my corporate identity days, where you would flesh out your typography and do all the different versions that are going to appear on the site. It goes through and it builds the whole design system for how the buttons are going to look. And again, this is what designers get excited about. But all of these modules that are pre-used or reused throughout the site, they come up with a visual system for all that stuff, and there are a lot of different tools that have been provided on the Figma side that allow you to do this. But again, the issue that I had and that I wanted to investigate was how easy is it for this stuff to go over to WordPress? All right. So again, part of the system, they did how all the logos and how the icon works. Because again, one thing that I found as a designer is that every designer wants to create their own icons instead of using standard icons or international icons, but that's another story. It also has a pattern library that you can translate over. And then again, there's a whole bunch of layouts. I think in terms of this product itself, they brag about having 13,000 different layouts that you could go with. So again, if you're not a designer, you can say, hey, I like this, this, and this, and you could create your own layouts in Figma by piecing together different parts of this toolkit. All right, let me go back again. All right, so let me. So what I wanted to try to demo to show, to see whether these plugins work or not, and if they're worth it or not, is again, I took this landing page that we had as part of Metro, and then let's see here. Let's go ahead and I got Figma to Elementor. What I'm going to demo today is an Elementor. Also, they have a plugin with this tool for Gutenberg and for bricks, so the process is kind of similar. All right. So in here, you can select what you're gonna move here. it shows in the little interface here. You also have the ability to optimize and copy. If you're coming up with your own designs, again, if you're starting from scratch, I would suggest doing this, because using what they've already built, or people, UiChemy has a whole bunch of predetermined layouts, and you can figure that those are probably going to work better. But what I found, some of them weren't really designed that well. So if you're a designer and you want to do something very custom, I wanted to see if my design, which was already vetted and our UI person did it, if it's going to work. There's also an option, which I think by having my screen small, I can't show you. There's another option underneath it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit optimize and copy. Right. Then it gives you a number of different options. It has a optimization companion, which allows you to go through each element of the page, and suggest a way to optimize it. There's also widget tags. So again, as you can see, there's already a lot of work going on that you have to do to let the product know, hey, look at this, and convert it over to WordPress. So you can go through for all your icons, and you have to sort of tell it what it's going to be when it gets over to Elementor. Also, and again, I can't really plus it up because this is sort of his app that he built. So I hope you can see it. And what I'll try to do too is I'm going to, as part of this journey, also, I'm going to try to document all this stuff and do better videos than like the Zoom meeting that I could share later. But there's these 5 categories that you have to walk through and go ahead and select all these settings. And again, this deals with how it's responsive. These are conversion settings. So again, you may want to export it without the images. So it's all these different things that you have to go through. There's 5 steps as you do this. And then you can also, if you have styles, you can go through and sync those up as well. And then we're going to just go ahead and hit convert. All right. So it copied them to the keyboard, to the clipboard. All right, let's go here. It also has a number of different templates that are already set up here that you can import into your Figma file and then export those. So again, in the videos that I saw, he was able to quickly move these over into Elementor without any problem. But again, they weren't that great in terms of design. All right. All right, so let's jump over into, this is our WordPress site here. I've installed the UiChemy plugin, which is in the WordPress.org/plugins directory. And once installed, you have to set up an account. Of course, they want to sell you. So the big thing with my meetup and the meetups that I like to do is I try to do things that are free as long as possible. So it does have a free version, but again, you can see they hit it down here, and it has the 3 different flavors that you can do. And then you just hit start for free once you select which one you wanted to try. And then once you go through giving them your personal information, et cetera, I joined up with my Google account. Again, it's free. And then they give you the plugin to download and install in WordPress. And again, for those that aren't familiar with WordPress, we'll have more sessions on how to install plugins and things like that. But again, plugins are things that add functionality to your WordPress site. And in this community, if you're thinking that you want a feature and someone's probably built a plugin for it already, there's also a whole ecosystem of plugins that are outside of WordPress.org that people that are considered premium plugins that you can buy, but those also add more functionality and allow you to extend WordPress out into new directions. So once you've done that, it gives you a license key as well as the ability to install it. We've done it. And once you've installed it, it gives you a wizard to walk through. Again, we've selected the plan, got the license key. On the Figma side, we've installed the UiChemy Figma plugin. We selected design for export. And it's active. Okay. All right, so it generates a token here. Let me grab that. Go back over to Figma. let's go. Word. Select pages. Okay. It'll give you two things. Once you've decided on the pages you want to take over, you can download a JSON file. And again, this is super, super technical for those that aren't familiar, but that's basically all the code information that tells it how it's going to look. So on the WordPress site, you can import this into like your page builder or your bricks file or even your Gutenberg, and it should pull it in that way. But you can also do a live import. So let's see if that works. Once you select live import, you select the site you want to add. And then we're going to need to grab our URL from our site. And again, this is a test site I set up in SiteGround. Then I'm going to grab, oops, this is a token. All right. And then we're going to connect. It's connecting to the SiteGround site, what you see here. It gives you some import settings that you can, again, this is more work. You have to go in, you can say, hey, this landing page, let's treat it like a page. And you can go through and like the more you have to import, like if you were just importing sections, you would go through and on each section and do this. So it can be tedious, but we're going to import all based on the setting that I just did. And you hit import. Depending on how complex your page is, it's gonna take a few minutes or it may take seconds. All right, so let's go ahead and open that. It's gonna jump over and it brought it over. You can see the button didn't come over. You see some of the padding is a little weird. The fonts didn't come over. But as you can see, it brought over the majority of everything, but it's all a little bit off. So for me, I'll open it up to comments before I go ahead and give you my opinion. So in seeing that process and seeing what you sort of have to work through, do you think this is something that you would use for our WordPress veterans to sort of take
No.
something from Figma into
The
WordPress?
opinions are coming flying. No, I wouldn't do that because by knowing what I know, and there are some people who don't know what they don't know at this point, that WordPress is extremely powerful and it can do where it can stay with you where you are, but it's so powerful. And so I would have made a query loop for the 3 boxes, right? You know, there's a whole thing, there's a lot of more information on this page. Like, are we looping through custom post types and stuff? It's just like, it's all surface. It's like the frosting on the cake with no cake. Okay. That's how I see it.
Any other comments? Any, I see you shaking your head, Ron.
No, I was nodding my head, or I was trying to. It's like,
Okay.
I was agreeing. I was agreeing with Alicia.
Well, no, that's how they do it in India. That means yes.
Yes, it does.
And that's true. It's a cultural thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do it that way. But this might be good but to get the ball rolling, to show a client a rough build, or a wireframe with, just to get discussion started, I suppose.
Yeah, I think for me, what you see here, if you were going to show it to your client, it looks better over in Figma to show it there. And I think the other thing, like if we edit with Elementor, and again, depending on your editor, this would all look different based on whether it's bricks or Gutenberg. In these two cases, you can see, did they come over as the proper widget one?
Yeah.
I mean,
I can guarantee you it works better in bricks.
yeah, I was going to say, I think, go ahead, Alicia.
It probably works better with bricks because bricks is using semantic HTML and everything. And that's probably what is being fed into Figma, not this page builder with its widgets. You know what I mean?
So with semantic Why don't you define what
Oh,
semantic?
semantic HTML is like the skeletal makeup of the entire internet. Like if you're seeing a web page because you see HTML code and all the things on the page have specific tags. That's another concern too, is like, did it bring over the landmarks on the page and all that stuff that you need for accessibility? That's why I don't trust any of these. And so like the semantic HTML is there with when you think about accessibility, back in the day, it was Times Roman, purple and blue links, white background, and you had a few pictures put in. So screen readers were working with that structure. And then people needed things to do whistles and bells. And so all that started happening. And then it got kind of like clogged up with this weird HTML that didn't make sense. The page structure has to be the same underneath the hood, even though things may move around on the front. And there's just so much stuff you have to take into consideration that trusting some import from this design thing is almost like, I swear, I would only use this for like a landing page that had no header and no footer. Because that's what you do with that. Like it's a landing page at the end of the funnel for an ad. And I had to do it real quick overnight and I get it in there and then kind of fuss with it, make it better, and then launch it tomorrow. Literally the only use case in my mind.
Anyone else want to jump in with their thoughts before I share mine?
I agree with her.
Yeah, I love the hat.
Thanks.
I was going to say, for me, and any of us that have worked in either on the design side or on the website, if you have to go in and do more work after something is supposed to do the work, that sort of is a wasted time. It's like it's better to, you could do it right the first time in whatever tool you're going to use instead of going through the intermediate step of using. Go ahead, B.
You want to actually have the knowledge to build a website because not only is the semantics, but there's attributes that go into these tags for the situation at hand, for like the
Yes.
technologies. There's never a time that a plugin can compensate for the human who can judge this situation with all variables that come in. Because
Yes.
the screen readers, it's like the keyboard, a lot of the focus and a lot of that stuff, you're still gonna have to like use your eyes to go over it later anyway. So might as well just do it.
Yeah, and I
It
think,
just what
and I
I
was going to
find
say,
with
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what you'll find for people on this side is, for me, the approach I think I try to take is, like Alicia was saying, I don't want to bring in plugins that, I mean, I want to have a simple approach to how I design and lay out pages so that I don't have to depend on a third-party plugin or something that you have to worry about updating or breaking or not doing what you need or customizing it. Like if you learn how to do some of the development things that could solve some of your basic problems, and it'll help you in the long run in terms of you'll be smarter, you'll have more in your skill, in your toolbox, but also you won't have a million, like I'm showing on the screen here that there are over 59,000 free plugins. And then when you bundle in how many more are out on the premium side, a lot of people that are new to WordPress, they go out and grab as many plugins as possible. That slows down your website. That can cause
Yeah.
conflicts. There's so many downsides to it. But again, you're looking for features. Like one of the things that, as I go on this journey, I'm trying to really focus on like the user experience, even if it means trying to build some tools for it, because a lot of times we're so quick to go grab a plugin that it really defeats the purpose of why you're building the site or who you're building the site for. A lot of times we like the bells and whistles that we like instead of what the user wants. So again, if you're starting out, it's really important to sort of have a basic knowledge of what can get you to the finish line and then sort of build on top of that.
Can I also add to like did you say that you were new to this? I think you did. I think she said she was new. And and we got her early. You know what I mean? And
No,
so I
no, I'm
really
not new. I'm not new to this.
okay to the WordPress.
I'm not.
You're
It's
doing
just
it. Okay, okay.
I was using WordPress years ago, many years ago, and you know when you had to create from you use HTML, CSS, and you connect everything, and then you upload it. I did experience with that, but
Okay.
now I just created my own website, and it was so different from what I was used to. All the plugins, but also you can some of the plug. So what I did is I created a child theme
That's
from a
right.
regular theme, and then I customized it, and I used Copilot for my pictures and everything. But then for the calendar, I created a calendar. I customized the calendar as well. It's good to know how to do it in the back end, but at the end of the day, sometimes you are forced to use certain plugins because it's just the functionality, and it's also
Right.
faster and easier. And I'm also incorporating AI a lot in everything in my life. And so things have changed a lot from what I've learned in the developer courses.
Okay.
Hey B, why don't you talked about working with UX designers in the past. Talk a little
Yes.
bit about that process. How would you
Oh,
get files and then what would you have to do with those, or was it the other way around? Were you
okay.
the UX person?
So on one of my projects, we had to create a tab. It was for a financial company. So they had to create a tab, and we were waiting for an API to be ready for us to test. The API wasn't ready. So the UX design, we had the markup,
Okay, that's the part I was asking. You were using a mockup that you actually put on a server outside of Figma, or was it
Yes.
used? Okay, because some of these design things actually have it where you can put hotspots on the actual design. I'm not sure if Figma, I didn't dig deep enough. But so clients are actually confused. They think they're looking at a website, but they're actually looking at a design with hotspots that click onto another design page.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's the tool has gotten very good in that you could use what's called variants, and you could do rollovers and all that kind of
that's
stuff.
what I'm talking about. Yes.
I mean, you,
Sometimes
the,
they
the
think that
Figma
their
file
website.
looks like a functioning website, but
Yes.
again, like you saw, and I'll sort of that dovetail into my final comment. You could see how I created a button, but when it came over as an image, so it's like the way it
Mm.
sees things in Figma doesn't really translate over into how WordPress sees these same elements. So it's to me, and then the thing that I really thought was inconvenient or not a winner was that you had to go through so many steps to identify things to convert. You had to go through and tell them what the icons were. You had to map things. Like that's not how a designer works. That's not how a developer works. So it's a whole new process on top of two different processes. It was a headache.
Joe was not down with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, Figma is a prolific program, but I was like still needs to be a bridge that
Really, in my use case, I use it's a mental thing for me because I like to make websites that actually are very authentic and unique to the person who has it as a client. And sometimes it goes into this whimsical space. And so when I just go into Figma and I make it, and I don't think about how I'm going to code it, I just go, I'm going to do this. And then I'm done. And then I hit code and I go, I want whatever I'm doing to look like what I had my other brain in. Like my brain's in a different place. And that's how I use Figma. So then my brain goes into the coding space where now I've got to figure out how to make an eight-sided star with a shadow. You know what I mean?
yeah. But I think the one thing that Figma really has going for it is that it really looks beautiful when it's laid out like that.
Yep.
You can really zoom in and it looks really polished. But then if you take it over and the button's not exactly, it's like the fights that I've had with UX designers about it being in the exact position and not really an important item. Anyway. Any other comments? I know I've been doing most of the talking, but I would love. I'm going through the chat now to sort of read what people have been dumping in there. But if you want to sort of recap what you put in the chat or open it up for the group to hear, I would love to hear some of your thoughts here on, again, a lot of the folks in our community, I don't know if we've even considered using Figma. Would you consider using it after seeing this terrible demonstration by me? I just
So-
I
want
would highly encourage people to use Figma to get the design down because I feel like having that design helps you code better rather than mucking around and trying to make a design while you're coding. It feels like what we've just done when you're doing that. And so then you have for yourself an overview. And then even if you just do the desktop version, you can almost in your mind kind of figure out how it would look on the phone version, right? It's all going to be 100% across and narrower. And so I just would highly recommend that doing some kind of mock-up before you start building a site.
awesome. Anyone else?
My experience.
Wondering if there's anybody here using frames for Figma at all.
Say what?
Frames for Figma.
Is anyone using frames for Figma?
Frames. Oh, nope.
I'm
Nope.
just starting out in my Figma direction to make sure I'm not missing something because I always wireframe in my development environment just because I can do it so fast with some of the tools I have. But
You're going the other way.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I've seen, in the research for this meetup, I went through and I saw quite a few because in Elementor it has sort of like if you look at the styles on back when you're in the back end, it'll show you some of the sort of layouts that Figma has. They're trying to go after that designerly thing, but being able to present that to your client and have it look as impressive as a Figma file is, those two things are totally different.
Yeah. Well, I know with the attraction, I wanted to learn Figma basics, just because, I'm a ex Photoshop Illustrator guy now using Affinity line of products when I have to go there, which is not as often as I used to do years ago. But so I'm going to learn the basics of Figma. But Frames for Figma is a tool where I can choose a wireframe and lay out a generic Figma environment, and then I can use the exact same thing in the website so that I don't have to rebuild some of the components.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm just wondering if anybody's done that yet. But
Do you feel like it's an exact a good representation of what you were doing in Figma? And do you have to
I'm
do
I'm
you have to do a
expecting
lot of
that that's
tweaking?
the whole that's the whole premise.
Mm.
I mean, that's the attraction. But I've not done it yet.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah,
yeah.
well, I think I'll try to do it before the before this week's over.
Yeah. And so right now, anybody who's using Frames is pretty much probably a Bricks user
Mhm.
in the Bricks environment, even though there are other environments Frames works in, and there'll be more in the future. But most, like over 90% of people using Frames are using it in the Bricks environment. So that's
It works in Generate Press.
and it works in Generate Press too.
It's a Kevin Geary product. If you didn't catch on to that, it's definitely worth looking into if you want to transfer, if you want to build a wireframe quickly in Figma and have it be meaningful for transferring to web. It's just a no-brainer. It's all done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think oh, go ahead.
Have you done it, Ron?
No, I'm in the same boat as you. I mean,
Okay.
I'm still paying for Adobe, so I'm a Photoshop user almost all the time. But I really, I'm very interested in Figma because everyone's talking about it. And for quick wireframing that can be just brought over, without a lot of translation,
Yeah.
it's completely awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I want to do to flesh out this topic fully is to convert it to the other two options that I talked about earlier. But it's interesting too because the amount of people that signed up for this meetup shows you that it's a hot button topic, and it's like you can't really ignore that audience. And it's surprising that no one's really built something that really works with Figma. But then the difficult thing too is that WordPress is evolving so fast, and all these different tools are coming out. How do they decide which one to develop for? I'm sure the guy that did UiChemy is like, I did these three, and now there's another one coming next fall. So it's hard to pick the right tool and stick with it as things change.
Well, I joined to have you convert me into Figma user, but it's just like talking about the frames thing. It's like the ability to put frames or templates and stuff and into Figma so they can design it and then put it back into Bricks when I could just do that in Bricks.
Yep.
So why would I want to do it in Figma? Because I've got the same thing in Bricks already, but I'm going to pay extra money to have it so I can do it over here in Figma first.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen the value add yet.
Yeah.
For
It
me,
doesn't-
Figma comes into play when I listen to people like the admin bar group yak about Figma. It's when you have to interact with large businesses, communities, stuff or committees where you have a lot of interactivity about the design and the change of the design and the iterations of the design. And so Figma gives them the ability to have a visual review process to look at the site without having to go into all the intricacies of coding this site. But for most of us with small businesses and one-on-one groups, I don't know.
Eagle, what you said also works on large businesses as well. In my opinion, I've been working with Figma for a lot of years, and Figma almost always causes confusion because the designers will put everything in Figma and they'll get approval based on Figma. And then when the developers go to develop the web pages, it's not pixel perfect. So then the upper management says, well, it doesn't look exactly like it does in Figma. So what you were saying is if we do it in WordPress, if we build it in WordPress first and show them the designs and the possibilities, that saves us developers a lot of headaches over design in Figma.
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, I had the same problem when trying to convert from Photoshop, back when we used to slice and dice. It never comes
if
out
you're-
exact.
But you're also just building the site and you're not sure they're gonna like it. So I have already been this route and I had to recode that thing 5 times. I'd rather just click a button in Figma and it's our job to instill and inform clients that this is a picture. And that there's like about 30 or 40 device sizes. So that's our job. We gotta explain the media to them because they may not get it.
They
So
don't get it, Alicia.
yeah, so that's
Right.
just the way it is.
But Figma is static because
Exactly.
most times if you share a Figma link, the upper management don't know how to drive around Figma. Hold Control Shift Delete whatever to move your space bar and move around Figma. So what ends up happening is the designer will export it to a PDF and they'll email the PDF
Oh,
out.
Jesus.
Why are they doing that? They can just send the link to the
But
no, it's another thing you can do where you can save each one of those pages as a page and you can send that link in Figma. You don't have to
but I
there's
think
other settings. Yeah.
But I think it goes to the previous comment. I think this tool is perfect for like the history that I described. Like if you're working for a large, a Fortune 500 company, this is like the shiny Mercedes that you roll out the design in. It's like, to me, this tool is really for a large team. It doesn't really seem to work for people that are, have to be mobile or agile and get something up and, build our own sites and work with smaller clients. It seems like it's an extra step that you don't have time to sort of incorporate. It's like a waste of time if you could just do it either on the design side or on the website.
I've
I
used
think
it.
you're going the right
mobile,
direction in
yes.
that. I think the one piece that you're missing is that depending on the Figma user, right? If you talk about it being somebody who actually knows how to build a house, when they build out plans, they understand that there's going to be studs in the wall. They understand there's going to be piping. They understand all the intricacies of the actual things behind the scenes. A really good developer understands that.
Mhm.
And they can translate that into design where they can draw a box and they understand that this box is going to have a container and it's going to stretch and they do all these different things. But what happens is, like you were saying, one of the problems is that you get somebody who doesn't actually understand how to build something. They literally draw a picture of a car and they're like, yeah, we're going to build you this model car. But they have no concept of actually what it is. They don't know about seats, seat belts, human interaction. They don't know anything that actually takes to build something, an engineering degree. And the downside of Figma is it's literally a presentation of an advanced PowerPoint file that any monkey can go in there and start dropping in content without the consequence of actually knowing how to build something. So handing that off to somebody is a dangerous tool. And I think that's the really downside of Figma. It's a little bit too open for people who don't know what they're really doing, and they expect something that they prototype in clay to be an actual car. And we know that there's a translation issue. So as long as you understand its limitations and you guide them to that and you say, this is kind of like the concept, and then you get the approvals and you go back into a more of a real prototype using, WordPress or any other type of HTML editor.
Okay, I appreciate that comment, but I want to disagree with something. Blaming Figma for bad coding skills is not not a limitation of Figma.
I'm simply saying that if people don't know how to use tools in
They shouldn't-
reality,
yeah.
you have a downside of something. Like, I've seen designs come up where people are presenting things and they have these crazy animations that literally are not possible, because how are you going to do a background in a movie file with animated stuff and expect it to render on a mobile device with like limited bandwidth, and it's just sometimes it's too much fantasy, not based on some reality stuff. So I think the expectations are quite different. when you literally have to put, have to deal with bandwidth, sizing, scalability, accessibility, and
Yeah.
Figma doesn't account for that. It's literally it's an advanced Photoshop with these
I feel like
additional layers.
the downside of Figma in the wrong hands is what you're trying.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
That's it. It just like the downside of a knife sharpener in the wrong hands would be a bad thing. But that does not necessarily mean that the knife
It sounds
sharpener.
like an AI conversation to me.
But no, what I'm saying is it's like this tool is not meant for the layman. That's all
No.
it is. It's that and there's like maybe some other tools out there where you can whip something together or whatever quickly for someone. But the whole idea is that sometimes you find if you're just doing a mock-up in and this would be my personal thing, if I'm doing a mock-up inside the code or inside the editor, then the limitations of what I can do, the walls come crowding in really quickly, and I end up making the websites look the same all the time because it's like, there, I got these tools. But when you want to have an advanced design and you want to do something bespoke, and not many people are doing that, then you do go for Figma. So it might be overkill for just like your average person who just grabs Elementor and throws things together.
Yeah, it's not free either.
Yeah, I think this is a complicated tool that has a large learning curve, and you really need to be very experienced to get the best, the best out of it. And just like, you said certain things didn't come over to Elementor, and perhaps it's in the configuration of that converter. Maybe there are certain configurations that have to be dialed in to get things to work, and I think that's where the advantage comes. Somebody who's done this for a while and has dialed in Figma and has dialed in their conversion process and has templates and configuration files that they, just constantly reuse. I think that's where I've seen the most success in people who've got this all dialed in, and it takes a while to dial it in, I'm afraid.
I think, and that's a perfect point. I think for me, what's missing is that it seems like the developer who built this plugin didn't have like user experience people, someone talking them through, hey, well, if I was building a page, I wouldn't build it this way. Because I think using this tool, I had to set up the file a certain way, the way he thinks I should design a page to translate it over. It's like, I don't lay out a page the way he wanted me to lay it out in this tutorial. So to me, there's a disconnect.
There's also the fact that tool was Elementor, Bricks, and Gutenberg, and like, hello, neither one of those three is static. They change quite regularly. Elementor just had a huge update not too long ago. Bricks changes every 4 to 6 weeks because they keep updating. Gutenberg.
That might be
I'm not going to even talk about Gutenberg. Just trying to keep up a plugin that integrates into 3 different, very technical areas is like, I can see quickly how it would not convert everything perfectly because, the next update is going to break things perhaps.
You probably already did. You probably had an update after you started.
Yeah, that's what my point. My point.
And the reason I asked at the beginning if Tiffany was if I knew her, I thought she was someone from my office, because I was going to rip the UX person in that, like, as I work through her designs, I see what her process is. Like, the colors aren't all, the blacks are different. It's like I could see how she was thinking as she was laying it out, that she was sort of designing and said, oh, this color's a little better. But then she didn't go back and I was like, I would never design that way. So to me, I mean, the designer, you and the UX person have to be in conversation. You and the developer have to be in conversation. And that sort of happens during your process. And to me, if the tool adds another barrier, it's not a tool I want to use. So
that's a very profound statement, because if your designer, or if you're who you're designing for, if there's differences between how you see things and you're not getting along, this is just another way to get to create confusion and trouble.
I know. And then like our marketing people were like, hey, it needs to song and dance. And then, it's like, hey, but people can't use song and, it's like all that
Can you
extra
make the
drama.
logo bigger?
Oh, I
Oh
know.
my gosh.
So yeah.
That's
So
like, that's like for
I, I,
narcissism.
I want shadows and tweaks, and I want things flying in from the top and the bottom. And
I'd
can
love
you
to
have
hear, I was gonna say I'd love to hear more. Anyone else that hasn't chimed in yet that wants to give their opinion. Again, it seems like we're bad mouthing Figma. I want someone to sort of
I don't
speak
think
up
we're bad
or
mouthing Figma. I think we're bad mouthing use cases. I feel
yeah,
like that's
no.
what it is really. It's a use case. I use it all by myself. I have no one else. So it's me and myself. So that's why it works really
it's
well
a
with me.
it's a
I'm
great collaboration tool.
I'm
Oh, I do that too. And
Yes.
because when the client comes in and then that's it, and I'm like ready to go, ready to go. And then the magic is putting it into the media that moves. And they understand why I'm doing it. I'll tell them things like we have to even leave this part off for the phone.
Yeah.
Or
You
put
know,
this in for the phone, things like
there's
that.
another slight take on it, which I guess is probably the foundation for why I'm interested. If I can find a level of blend where I can wireframe or build a website, and I can make it simple, simplistic, more wireframey, show it to the customer and build it out. But there's still elements that cost time that I think I can do faster in Figma. But if it takes me, if I negate all that advantage by converting the design over into my regular development environment, then it's useless. So I'm going to jump into Figma and see, is there an advantage to doing, because certain things you can do faster. You rotate text and do a few things. I don't need to have them componentized or whatnot. I can do it individually because I'm not going to show them every page of the entire website, but I'm going to show them basic stuff. And if I can lay it out quick and we can have a discussion, they can then ask me to make their changes or whatnot. We can hone in on the design. Then I'll do it in my development environment. But if working in Figma has too big of a learning curve, or it negates that advantage, then I'm out. And so that's why I'm here. That's my interest in going into Figma. And I don't hear people talk that way too much. I hear these discussions, and we have a single person development team versus somebody else who's on a big team, whether it's
I've
5
done
people
both, by
or
the way.
10 people, a shop. And those applications for these tools are different, because then you have designers being designers, you have developers being developers, as opposed to some of us solopreneurs, if you will. We're dev designers, we're designers, developers, that's the way we're looking at it. And I think the needs are different in those environments. So I think it's kind of important to explain where you're coming from so we can access why your opinion is what it is.
Yeah. Well, Doug, I've done both. I was like at a Microsoft thing that we were in Figma. We were also in that Adobe one. Figma's better, by the way. And I was still able to do this, have the same sensibility for both of these situations. I was still able to like have a roadmap for my coding. That's essentially what it is. And then there's another thing you can do with Figma, which I find was better than trying to do it in WordPress or in HTML, was the atomic design philosophy, where you don't do the whole mockup page, you do the elements that you're going to be using throughout the site. And then through that process, you start creating a style guide. And so you can actually, Figma's excellent for creating the style guide too, that you're going to export out. So then people can utilize, and you can actually share the Figma as the style guide. And that's what I was doing in a corporate thing that I did. That was our style guide. We went into this like Adobe thing and we're like, oh, cool, I can even go get the colors and everything. And so there's our use cases, and incorporating that for yourself for the website, so that when you do the documentation later for the client, you can actually hand that off. So like the chances of them really messing up the site and pulling out some random color because it just like spoke to them in the middle of the night and messing up everything. I mean, all these tools have infinite uses, and you can actually make the use so custom to yourself. That's why I like powerful tools like Figma. You can just use a simple basic thing and say, we're just going to do this, or I'm just going to show you what the forms look like in Figma because we're having a hard time with that right now. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the sky's the limit. And so I wouldn't try to say you have to use it a certain way. Always be open for the flexibility of these tools.
I was just gonna chime. I mean, this conversation is so great because these are all the things that are like bouncing around in my head. Because way back, we would have to put that whole design system like in a book, and then it was like the book that you would hammer over.
Yeah,
You know,
and then
the marketing person that wanted to create a certificate over their head that it had to look a certain way. But now it's in digital form, and it's, to me, that's why I was considering it, because all that is part of the art that I used to love. Like I love, like I believe Ryan asked to see the code on the Figma file. I love how in developer mode it shows you all the margins, and like to me, when I work with our UX team, I love that it's, you know, that, you know, to see if they're thinking like me, that it should be consistent between each section or whatever they're thinking. I could sort of see how their creativity is working or how their design process is. But to me, it's great to create a standards manual or something like that. So I wanted to look back at it and see how I could sort of fold it into that part of the process. But going back to what Don was saying, how you go from this to the development portion I would love to see how a large agency uses this with their development team, and how the development team likes using Figma. I would love to know how they see this tool.
So Joe, when you go, so all the supposedly ways to port over a Figma page to a web page, they don't work, or they just work crappy. Like
they're not pixel perfect. I mean, the first time I did it, and again, I sort of wanted to jump out my window on the second floor because I got so frustrated. Like the first time I did that page, I didn't lay out the Figma file right, so only the hero went over. And then I was like, so then I had to go back and find a different video that said, hey, you should lay it out this way. So the learning curve is like learning a third new thing in the process, in our process. So to me, the tool, the bridge, is terrible right now. Like Figma's great, WordPress is great, but what's in the middle is terrible.
It's one of them shaky ones that has like a rope and you have to hold the other ropes.
Yeah. Because there were two big ones that sort of have the same interface, so I'm assuming that they built off the same code.
Okay.
But it's not the right process. To me, it seems like the person in the middle needs to create something that's better. And I would love to hear what developers think about going from Figma to developing certain features on the site. And going back to what Alicia said, like seeing how the forms would work and all that stuff, seeing it in this form would be great, because people at my agency, they don't give a shit that you're using Adobe, excuse my French.
Right. They just
They
want to
don't
get
care
it.
that you're using a PDF or
Right.
a form tool. They want to see how it lays out
That's right.
and that the information is correct. So if you could whip up something here that you could build, it would be great. So to me, this has a value, but I'm not sure where it falls in yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just wonder if that's what you're trying to do. If you're developing all the content to go into Figma, why don't you just build a website?
Yeah.
And if you're wireframing it, why don't you just use wireframing? You just go from
But
there.
if you're building something, like if you're working for a large government agency and you're building a design system, they do need to see all the different
Right.
iterations of how this is going to look in a
Yeah,
bit.
I guess you're
on
right.
Yeah,
the
because
website. It's
because
like
if
you
you're
need to
using
see a
custom-
large amount of information,
Yeah.
how the system works in every form. Like when I was in design school, like, a logo has to work small and has to work large. It's
Yep.
like, if you don't work through that before you get to the end phase, then I think you take more time and then you have a lot more revisions with the client. So to me, it depends on the instance.
Well, it's also when you have custom post types in the site, you're going to utilize the dynamic archive that is given to you because you made a custom post type. Now that's going to look just like the blog, but you don't want that. So now you're going to have to do a mock-up of what that's going to look like.
I
So,
see.
right?
No,
Or
no,
the
I get you.
full
Right,
page
right, right.
view.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's like things you're looping through from other, being pulled in from other pages. And like, it's a whole thing. I mean, to me, I've just reconciled myself that I don't do the whole site. Sometimes some people only go as far as designing the whole page.
I know. Or, the typical
That's
the
it.
typical
and then
menu
give a
with
style
four,
guide with
the
it, like with the
homepage in
buttons
4
and stuff.
pages,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
So give
typical
like a style guide along with
package.
the homepage showing you like what the buttons and what the menu
Yep.
and that kind of thing might look like too. But
Yeah.
that's it, right?
So what
Yeah.
about you, Steve? What do you think? Do you think you would use something like
I don't
this?
think so. I mean, I have both an app and a subscription for it, but I've never messed with it. I got it because I had somebody that was gonna, told me they were gonna share their ideas with me through Figma because they wanted a web, but they never did, and I just built it.
Do you, Joe and Alicia and anybody else comes from a more design background, do you prefer Figma over Photoshop?
Yes.
Because
100%.
it lets you fly with your ideas
No,
more.
it's actually it's fluid. Like
I mean,
Because you
the-
like the
when
big
you, like-
canvas. You like the big
But I was going to say,
canvas.
the
no, it's
thing,
not the canvas. I'm sorry, go Joe. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, no. I think we're going to the same place. So go ahead and drive.
Okay, it's not the infinite canvas part. There's a layout element. There's a part that where you can actually say, I need these items in the navigation to always be the same amount of space between each other. So if I keep squeezing the box, those navigation buttons, they move. And then if I
Responsive.
have several boxes inside other boxes and I squeeze them together to go and do the phone version, it'll just, I can
I would say
copy.
whichever one, frees you in the design process,
It's freeing. That's why I
free-
like it. It's totally
because
free.
the comment to speak to Eagle's comments about just building it, designing in the page builder in WordPress. It's not, I mean, I can see the value of anything in the initial design that lets you fly, where you can sort of not worry about every single custom post type that's going to come in the future. I mean, you want to throw ideas up on the canvas and
Or what's worse is
But-
when you're in the design phase and the code isn't working. Your HTML is not working because of some specificity in the CSS or something. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was going to say, Ron, but I think when you're in Photoshop, you don't have the ability to move, like if you do a whole layout, what happens? The text isn't, you'd have to, here, there's a clipboard for, for even the CSS that it generates that you could just use a clipboard and copy it and paste it over, or you can export the image. It's like, it does everything that Photoshop does, but also it gives you the code that you could take over if you need.
Well,
to.
Joe,
So-
are these designs using that layout thing where you can take the section that has these two boxes and you can apply a layout to it, and you can say, when I squeeze it this small, then it stacks.
Well, yeah, I didn't do all the variants on this. This was sort of like to test.
Okay.
Yeah. Why
so
would
that's-
you do that in
Comes over with-
Figma? I mean,
Huh?
why would you do
No,
that in
because
Figma?
you want to show the design of what it looks like on the phone, and you also want to show what it looks like on desktop.
Yeah,
So you need to copy
are
these
you-
two boxes.
Yeah, our UX person would build them separately. Like, let
Yeah.
me show you the page again. Like she would, she didn't do all 3 versions, which drove me crazy, but she would do the desktop and the mobile.
Yeah.
Sort
So
of
what
side.
I'm saying is you can copy that
Yeah, yeah.
whole page
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
desktop,
I
then
know.
paste it and then squeeze it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like that simple.
Yep. So yeah, so she would do each. But yeah, and like I said, I think that's what variants are. Like I think for the buttons in some of the
Well, no, it's
search.
called layout, actually. It's like a
Okay.
whole section. Check it out. And there's actually, I shared it with Doug Noyle. There's a whole Figma tutorial where you go through all of these different interactive tutorial elements and things to learn it.
Where do you
And
get that? Where do you get that?
here, I was just looking at it in my Figma, so let's see if I can share it.
I want it. I want it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
Let's see if I go back to files. And I remember there's a newer version. So yeah, it's this one right here. And let me see if I
But
can.
there's no way without a whole lot more training, I'm gonna mess with this. It took me long enough to learn Adobe XD, and then
Share.
XD, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Well, that's that I think that's the same thing as this, and it uses the same general philosophy.
oh, I loved XD because I could like link a button with an arrow and tell it where it was going and show them.
Yeah. That's you'll catch on to Figma real quick. If you've
Oh,
already
I
used
loved
that. Okay, let's see. Copy the link. Wait a minute. Share with anyone. Anyone can. Is that what I want? What the? Why are they making this so difficult? Where's the link?
Doug Noyle, do you have the link to that tutorial?
Wait.
I'm I'm looking to see
Oh, I found it.
that I've got it.
The
Okay.
UX for the actual pop-ups where you have to do stuff are horrible because like
Yeah, that's a pain in the nuts.
okay, so here, let me put it in the chat.
Alicia, this is the one that says start here, build your own team library, and then it shows you how to edit color styles, create color styles.
Yeah, Joe, if Joe clicks on
that
that link while he's sharing his window, he'll open it in his
Yeah.
Figma.
Okay, let me
Oh,
Every
it's right from
I was gonna say
Figma.
every time I turn off the sharing.
Sorry.
I'm
It's
just
right
joking.
from Figma. It's right from Figma, huh? Alicia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's from Figma. They're teaching you how to do this. And it's
Yeah,
like,
what's awesome is that in that
Thank you.
community, somebody will create something, and in the community, you just click on it and say add to my Figma, and then
Yeah.
it puts it into your. So yeah, let me.
Oh, that's super dope.
Yeah.
it's an amazing tool.
That's good. That's good. That's
So
good.
yeah, this is going to teach you how to do all of the
Everyone can see it. Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do you are you ever concerned? We've got B here who's wants her comments edited out because she shared stuff about her client, and that's understandable. If you're working in Figma on the online, are you ever concerned that all
Private.
of your designs are on
No,
Figma
but she's
servers?
It's not
private.
searchable. I don't think you could search it. Like
No,
if
you
you
can't.
can't Google search it. I mean, you only share. You can share a link with your like over here in the upper right. There's a share button, and then you could determine
Yeah.
who you want to share it with.
No,
And
but
you-
it's not your servers. That anyone that has access to those servers can see.
So I can clarify
proprietary.
what I meant.
access to Figma.
I
you
can
mean?
explain. I
Yes.
can explain.
Go ahead.
Their
Because
servers.
Yeah, let
I was
B-
working I
Go
was
ahead, B.
working on I was working on a project for a big bank in Canada. The
Oh.
project is not live yet. So that's why the things I was sharing, they won't like that. I'm not
Yeah.
supposed
It's
to
an
give too much.
NDA.
Exactly. And I realized, I'm like, I thought, oh my God, it's gonna be on LinkedIn. Oh no, YouTube, they're going to freak out. And I could
Uh-huh.
just see them freaking out. That's why.
Well, I was gonna
Yeah,
say
they-
I'm
They
weird-
called. They called.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm weird in that I go back through the video, and then like I said, the discussion parts are never part of the video, but I'll go through, and I usually have to do the captions and sort of clean them up. So I'll make sure as I go through.
Oh, thank you.
You
Thank
gotta
you. So
keep
I'm so
keep my
sorry for the
jokes.
trouble. I'm really sorry for the trouble. I didn't realize I was
That's
getting
fine.
so
Joe,
into
keep my
it.
jokes on.
That's why I was worried. You know, I could give you all the dirt about my work history.
No, don't do
Like
it.
I just when I saw someone's name that looked like somebody I worked with, I was gonna keep it more tame, but hopefully this is a safe place to share all those horror stories. But like for me, I just want to know what the best tools are to move forward, and like what's a
Thank
better
you.
audience than this community to sort of bounce ideas off of. So
So
Thank you.
Joe,
This is
Can I
great.
ask
This
a
is
real
great.
stupid question?
go ahead.
No
How
So when
stupid.
you're staring at this, I was able to make it open in my desktop Figma.
Mhm.
How do I save it to my library?
It's already in there, dude. You just go to your files. You go to your
Yeah, if you
files.
go back to your
Back to
files, it should
files.
show up in your windows.
It'll show up here. You don't have to worry about it.
See,
See?
now that I've opened it, it's in mine.
See? Go back to your files, Doug.
Yeah, at the top level. It's
I
there.
can't even
So go to your
open it.
files, Joe.
It keeps asking me to
There, right
log
there.
in.
Those are his files.
These are my files
Keeps-
right here.
It keeps asking me to create a login.
How
have-
did you get to your
Do
files?
you have? Is it the free version or do you have a paid version?
Free.
Oh,
probably-
that might
could
be
be
the
why,
problem.
probably.
That's the problem. You
How,
got-
like
how do you
even-
get to your files?
Like up over
Joe, double click in the thing again. Because he didn't see you when you left it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I initially clicked on the link, it took me here.
And it's not a word.
And it
It's
goes through the
logo.
Figma thing. And again, I'm in the browser, but
Right.
up in the upper left where the Figma logo is with the little down chevron,
Which
Mhm.
he
if you
probably
click here,
didn't.
it says back to files.
Oh, I see.
And then I jump back over to the main page. It's sort of like in Dropbox, like when you're down, look at the files, and then you have to jump back over to the home page.
But I'm gonna be honest and side with Doug on this. It took me a good minute to figure out that that was a logo I was supposed to click. To be honest.
I agree. And then some things,
So,
and then
That's
some
so
things,
bad.
like I had a different connection and I was on a different device. And then with one of these UX kits, it only showed me a couple of the items, but then when I came here, it showed me everything. So to
so
me,
I can
that's
go.
something
I can go. I can go to recents, but if
Yeah.
I look at a bunch of stuff and this goes off the recents or whatnot, then I can't get back to it. I guess there used to be. I thought there was a way. Move file, remove from recent, duplicate, share, copy link, create new branch, and open.
I know create new branch was sort of hilarious. I'm like, what are they trying to do a GitHub thing?
That's what I keep.
Like there's so much to this
Well, it's
tool.
not a
It's
GitHub.
it's
It's
so
like
many
you don't want to
layers.
mess with your original design. So in case you guys go way off the rails, you know how you go off the rails and you're like, could we go back to
Oh, so like another version.
Yes.
So
But to me,
I'm
did you-
looking at this and I see Ron Dunn in here and I can't click on anything.
Right, because
And
it's
open
free.
it.
You're looking at
Yeah,
the-
because he would have to invite you, I think.
yeah.
And
Like-
then when you do that, when you invite somebody to be a part of it, they charge you another $15 a month. So I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. Like for instance,
So
Like,
then this link is not very useful.
Well, no, I mean you
just
can
for visuals.
Yeah, for
I mean, yeah.
visuals.
Well,
Yeah,
you said it teaches us how to do things. I mean, it's
Well,
teaching
no,
me.
you do have an account?
I was gonna say it's teaching you
Yeah,
that
I'm
you
logged.
can buy
I'm
Figma.
logged into Figma. Yes, but
But is that in your so zoom in?
all I
because-
see
Can you
is
zoom-
Steve Kinsey and Rob Dunn trying to click on things, and they're not
I
getting
know,
there
but
either.
the stuff doesn't really start happening until you go across. See, it says direction and spacing, and you're going to go across through the tutorial. And in some of those squares, you're going to be able to work with things. Not in every square. And when you get to the one you work with, you click on something, you'll see the outlined box start to happen.
Oh,
But
it
you
looks
have
like
to-
also. I'm sorry to interrupt, Alicia. It looks like there are permissions on this file. Like for me, at the bottom it says "Ask to edit," and I
Oh.
guess that
Yeah.
will go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I shared it.
So
bad.
I think I answered my question, which might help Eagle. So for those of us with a free account, let me go back. When
You know what?
click,
I didn't share it
when
right.
when you're looking, Eagle, when you're looking at everybody moving around, you're seeing all of us in there flying around looking at stuff on the whoa.
You
So
should
on the
be-
left side,
because I just made it you can edit. I was me. It's like the Google thing when you share a file and you forget to do that.
okay, so let me ask you Figma people this. So we're staring at it. You've just gave us access to get to
No,
the
but don't mess with it, you guys. That's mine.
Okay, so now here comes my point.
I
Is
fixed everything, Alicia. It's much better now. You'll love it. I fixed
when
it
you
all.
click
I hit
on
the
the
delete key
Figma
button.
logo on the top left and that down chevron that Joe was showing us, on the free account, it looks different. And under File, I can save a local copy.
Uh-huh.
Do I want to do that, or do you not want to do
I
that
think the
because?
local copy goes to your desktop, doesn't it?
Yeah, but then you're divorced from any updates
Yeah,
that the
but-
Figma
but-
team is applying to this document.
Can I
Yeah.
jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Sure.
So let's say this is your final version that you all worked on. but you have a test account that you cannot upload to your desktop. And you need to share the diagram with your team, but you don't want to pay. Can I show you something I just thought about?
Sure.
Whoever's showing, do you have Microsoft Word on your computer?
Of course not.
No, me neither.
Okay,
Yes, we
so
do,
do
we
you
do,
have
we do.
snippet?
I'm
Do you have
open
snippet
source.
Yes.
on
Go
your
ahead.
computer? No, I mean on your computer. Do you have
Yes.
Microsoft?
Yes.
No,
No, I don't.
most
Do you
people
have-
don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say until December 31st I had it, but now I don't. That was gonna be the other joke, like the other file I was showing you guys. Like I don't have access anymore. So I
Okay,
couldn't.
so do you have at the bottom of the screen, do you have snippet? When you go to start on your computer, are you using Microsoft OS or Mac?
Mac.
No,
Okay.
Mac.
Oh,
I can
you
if
want
you,
Mac, I don't make that sound.
I was
Windows
gonna show
open
you
in
something.
Office.
I was gonna show you something really cool.
I was gonna say
Some of us here are on PC.
I can
Some
make
of
you
us
the
are on PC.
co-host if you want to share, but I know you're running into confidentiality stuff. I can make
No,
you
no. This is my home computer.
Okay,
So
so you
I
don't have
can, let me just move.
No, you don't have
Okay.
to be co-host to share.
Okay, hold on. Eagle, you said she doesn't have to be the co-host to share a screen?
No, you just turn on
Correct.
sharing.
Say again?
Just
Just
turn
turn on sharing.
Or go next to her name.
So under the share button, Joe, do you see a chevron that gives you some
Oh,
options?
I see what you're saying. Okay.
And then you'll have a couple of options there.
Okay, multiple participants can share simultaneously.
I think you can
Okay,
also
go
put-
for
Oh
it.
no, just one at a time.
But I would need to
I never
see-
see that option. Is that true, Eagle?
Probably.
Yeah, now you can do several at a time. It's nuts.
I've never seen one at a time.
Well,
only-
you
It's new.
Can you do it now, B? Let me know if you can share. Go to share and share your screen.
Okay, one moment.
Sometimes you have to like allow her to do it next to her name in the participants area.
So,
Yeah, I think Eagle just gave us the shortcut. Did it work or no?
yeah, it's working.
Yay.
Okay, there we
Okay.
go. Yes. Oh, this is awesome.
Thanks, B.
Snagit will actually do videos now.
Oh my God, Snagit's ridiculous for the price that you pay for that thing. It is like, I love it. Oh my God, it's like $20 a year or something. It's like a
No,
ridiculous.
no, it's more than that.
$50. I know it did. I think when you upgrade, when you buy it the first time, it costs a lot. Then you upgrade it, it's cheaper.
Snagit is
It's really good.
So any other comments here before we wrap things up? I know is Alicia, are you just gonna go straight through and then go right to yours? Is anyone planning on eating?
Oh, I know. I'm like, I have like for 58 minutes before mine starts. So at least I can get to the bathroom and get some food.
What are you talking about tonight? It's
Oh,
help desk now,
it's
yeah?
just a help desk. And so it's kind of like car talk. You just call in and we figure out what happened.
Well, we'll be talking about Figma tonight.
Actually, is Maria here? Did she go? We might be talking about some
No.
like Flex.
I'm
Box
here.
grid.
I'm here.
We might be talking about Flex Grid tonight.
Well, I'm talking about
so-
CSS Grid, not Flex Grid.
That's-
CSS
Sna-
Grid.
Or
Snag
that's
it
what it
is.
is. CSS Grid is part of the Flex family.
Well, it's a layout system.
Uh-huh.
CSS Grid.
Mm.
Correct.
Yeah, so you go display grids, you're already doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
And
I
then-
just want to know how Generate Press does it. I know sometimes
They
it's easier to write your own code.
Yeah, they
Oh,
don't
look
do
at
any- they don't-
get the Generate Press 2 blocks that just came out just this week. The grid is awesome in the new.
Okay, let's
But we'll
do
talk
it
about
tonight.
it in the meetup. We'll talk about it in the
Let's
meetup.
Snag
do
it
it
is
tonight.
$40 a year.
She has
I
it.
mean, I've got it. I want to know how to use it. So if we have time,
Snag it?
tonight, Alicia,
No,
Eagle,
no,
you're
Oh,
on.
sorry.
CSS Grid.
Yes,
So-
yes.
What are we talking about?
Snag
CSS
it's
Grid.
$40. Snag it's $40.
Yes.
Talking about CSS Grid.
Yes,
Oh.
that's what I want to learn how to use Generate Press to do it. I know I can write it. I can write.
It's Maria.
Oh no, you Generate blocks will dictate just
That's exactly what
it's-
I want to know how to do.
the new Generate Blocks 2.0 is mind blowing. They have improved the grid layout. They have improved. It'll
Let's
take
get
half an hour
into
just
it.
to, take
We'll
half
talk
an hour
about it
just to go through
tonight.
all the changes.
But I
Let's
wanted
get
to
into-
insert, well, the thing that I wanted to impart is that when we're looking at that sidebar and Generate Press and Generate Blocks, we're not looking at tools that Generate Press made. We're looking at an interface to write CSS.
Exactly. That's
So-
fine. Yeah.
So you're gonna be learning not to generate things but see the Flex Grid itself.
I want to know how to.
Yeah,
I can write it. I can write it, but I want to know. So see, Generate Press has the tools, the interface, whatever word you want to call it, to do it. So
Yes.
that's what I want. That's what exactly what I'm
Yeah,
talking.
so you're just gonna like the icon associated to whatever I showed you on that document from CSS Tricks.
We'll get into it tonight.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
gonna be
I want
fun.
to. I'm going
Alicia,
to have
can
to
you-
jump, and I want to thank Joe for this and ask you for a part 2 very soon.
Oh, I was definitely gonna do one because again, like I have a 4-month period to get this thing going, whatever I'm doing. So now it's time to really knuckle down and flesh it out more. But Alicia, why don't you share your meetup link? Did you in the chat in case people
Oh, okay.
keep
Oh, yeah,
the
because it's
conversation
happening.
going.
I think I shared it with when I introduced myself, but I'm gonna throw it in here.
And then if you need to
Yeah,
grab the
it's on the
chat,
move-
go ahead and do that now.
Mosey on over to the coast because that's where we're gonna be going. It's like
Everything's happening in Santa Barbara.
I know you
let's
sound like
see.
a radio DJ. Come on up the coast.
Mosey on over because like we are in Santa Clarita. That's about an hour away, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a little bit more than that.
Well, I mean, depends on how you.
I can get
Oh,
there
I
in
know,
an hour.
Alicia. You got over to Santa Clarita fast. You must have
No,
been.
I'm not gonna. The woman does not adhere to speed limits. Okay, they're just there as a suggestion.
Nice.
All right. Okay.
So, hey, what is Eagle? When's your next meetup? Steve, when's your next meetup? In case
Mine's-
people want to.
Mine's tomorrow. Eagles the next Thursday.
And what are you doing tomorrow? Is
Tomorrow
that
it's a
help
help
desk
desk.
style, or you got anything
Yeah,
specific?
no
or-
wide open help desk.
Okay.
Basically, the participants are our entertainment, is what.
I know, right?
Hey, and Maria, are you doing a presentation tonight, or are you?
No, I'm not
be?
doing.
Okay.
Not tonight, Joe.
Okay. I was just wondering because you chimed
No,
in.
it's really funny.
Come and hang out with us. It'll be fun.
Yeah, we were
Okay.
having a back and forth email about the topic she mentioned, and I was
Yeah.
like, well, darn it, why don't we just take care of it?
Let's
and
do it. Yeah.
All right.
So Joe,
Okay.
there's a list of all the meetups we hang out in, and up above there, a couple up is the new community that WP helpdesk.support community. So
Okay. Awesome.
check it out.
All right. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because I do want to eat before the next meetup.
Thanks, Joe. It was great tonight.
Oh, I know. Like I said, I was nervous because my life was in upheaval. When the fire hit, we were out of the house for
Oh, I gotta tell you something. I didn't notice you had rescheduled, and I was in another Zoom, and I was like, I gotta get off now. I gotta go to this thing, and I went, and I was like, where'd it go?
Yeah. Yeah,
So I thought it
but
too.
yeah, but this was
did
a hot button topic, so I think I want to continue this thought until we flesh it out more. But also, I'm gonna.
We could have a
go into-
Figma, like Joe. We could go through that thing.
Oh, I'd love
Have
to.
a series.